Your essay is called "The Era of AI FOMO is Upon Us." FOMO as in fear of missing out. I got to tell you, I have JOMO when it comes to AI. That's the joy of missing out. But are people upset they're not getting on the AI bandwagon?
I think a lot of things are going on at once. One is, we're a few years into ChatGPT. That's the chat bot that was released by OpenAI a few years ago. I think more or less most of us understand what that is. The FOMO aspect comes from the fact that the companies behind AI models like ChatGPT are moving on really, really quickly. They are releasing new models every few months, and it feels like the tech is developing exponentially quicker. It's a much faster evolution pace than we've seen from things like phones, where maybe it'd be an annual or a biannual upgrade. We're talking about sort of months or weeks between releases, and there's lots of releases from lots of different companies. So the FOMO aspect is partly about also feeling like you're just not really on top of this technology that everyone's telling you might take your job, might be really useful, but has severe economic impact. So it's a lot of big statements for something that's very, very hard to keep up with. So I think that's the sort of sentiment that underpins the FOMO element.
But you also write about how it's supposed to save us time and it's supposed to make us more efficient. And you use the anecdote of, I think it's a guy who wrote some sort of program that kind of runs his life and puts all these things, including his taxes and his schedule and his workout schedule, all into some sort of system where it's all optimized, and you're like, am I supposed to be spending my few free hours coding some sort of system to then make those hours more efficient? Am I?
Yeah, I think, certainly for me and us AI skeptics, let's say, I wouldn't necessarily describe myself as a full AI skeptic, but this idea that AI should run many aspects of my life is something I feel icky about, for want of a better word.
That's actually a great word.
It's a little icky. It sort of turns us all into coders, potentially, the idea of making your whole life kind of readable to the machine rather than this idiosyncratic, maybe slightly chaotic if you're a parent like me. My life isn't highly systematized. I make decisions on the fly all the time. How do I tell an AI system to run my life? It feels like there's a big barrier to adoption there where, I have to think about my life in a systemic way. I'd have to organize it in a way that makes sense to a machine, and then maybe the machine might do an okay job of, sending some emails, sending some messages, booking some appointments. But it feels like there's a big gap there between what my life actually is versus what I might be able to tell an AI agent to do. And the promise is, of course, is that an AI agent can do these boring things for you and save you time. But in reality, does your phone really save you time? I mean, you use it for huge amounts of admin. It means that actually a lot of what we have to do nowadays, booking holidays, finding a date, ordering food,
it's
all
exhausting.
Of this happens. It's exhausting. We all spend, maybe it does save us time, but the upshot is it's all moved to a single device where we now spend, many hours a day doing our kind of life admin, but also work happens on devices. So you just feel like a growing chunk of your time is spent on a screen. So this idea of spending more of your time telling a screen what to do and how to organize your life just feels like a bridge too far and maybe a little exhausting.
And maybe there's a disconnect between how much companies get out of it and a value add in our actual personal life, because you write, the creep of digital technology into our lives hasn't demonstrably freed us up for higher or nobler pursuits. We don't create more art because life is easier. Decades after the arrival of email, we just send and receive more of it. The smartphone era has flattened everything, as you just mentioned, into a single screen of constant admin. So how do you balance this? Any advice for people who think they should be participating or people who are panicked and participating too much? How do we handle this?
I think it's important to remember that not everyone needs to be on the cutting edge. I feel particularly exposed to this myself because I am a technology journalist. It's my job to look at some of these tools almost on a daily basis. And many companies are encouraging employees to experiment with AI tools. But you don't have to do everything. You don't have to hand over everything to an AI. Ultimately, you're in control over how much you use it. So I think the answer is to set some boundaries and stay a little resilient to some of the hype around it. You don't have to use this in your personal life if you don't want to. I think it's important to keep an open mind, as with all technologies, but, as such, you don't need to be on the front line, getting an agent to organize your personal life. But clearly that works for some people who love spending the time with the technology to make it work for them. Not all of us have to do that as yet, but it is worth keeping an open mind. So I think it's about setting boundaries. And, ultimately, if you don't want to look at a screen, you don't want to look at the AI at this point, you don't have to. And you can go and touch grass and spend time with your family.
Yeah, I'm not great at setting boundaries. I feel like now I've got another boundary I've got to set. But very quickly, we've only got about 30 seconds before I let you go. Have you found AI to be useful in one small way in your life?
I have, which is why I wouldn't say that I am an AI skeptic. I do find it useful for, where I live in London, for recommendations about day trips to visit with. I've got a toddler, and we often are finding ourselves looking for things to do to keep her occupied. And AI is a useful sort of bulk research tool, like a Google on steroids. So, just in terms of a map of suggestions, a list of suggestions, I have found it quite useful for that in my personal life. But, everyone's mileage varies.